Yeah, good morning from my side. I'm Rafael Calvert, Track Manager here at Pathlock for Threat Detection and Response. And today I'm here together with my colleague Clemens Gütter. We love to present the topic today. The main part is Clemens' topic because it's product management, Pathlock vulnerability management. Clemens might introduce yourself with a couple of sentences.
Yeah, thank you, Rafael. As Rafael said, Clemens Gütter, my name. I'm from Germany. You might also hear it from my accent. And I am responsible for the vulnerability management topics of the Pathlock organization. And today's webinar, I want to give you an introduction into this topic. So let's go over. Rafael, you want to continue?
I'll do that. Today's webinar, what are the topics in here today? What can you expect? First of all, I'll start with a small introduction to Pathlock, who we are and what we offer. And then the next is that we'll give a short overview about what is vulnerability management. So we saw that into several layers of security, where is it placed, and what do you do with vulnerability management? And then the next topic, Clemens will introduce you to is which personas work with vulnerability management. So which people in the company and which offices might used to work with vulnerabilities. And then we'll go into a short live demonstration of the tool and show you how does it look and feel is, and how do you use it. And last but not least, we'll give you some key takeaways before we start the Q&A session. So let me start with the introduction to Pathlock. We're an international company combined by 5 former smaller companies last year, beginning of last year, and now we're internationally represent with our offices. So we have offices in the United States and Europe, in India, in Israel. So all over the world, we can cover 24/7 service for you because we are there any time zone. And what do we offer? Let's have a look on that. We are offering 360 degrees protection for all business applications within your company. For that, we have 3 pillars: access governance, process controls, and application security. Within the part of access governance, we cover everything around your access controls, like role design. We have provisioning there. We have user certifications and review, and temporary user management, everything around the access for all applications. Then process controls is everything around how do you work with your processes, and how do you save your processes. So like data masking, if there's something happening in the system, we activate data masking, or we can see which transaction was performed from which user, if you want to do that, things like that. And last but not least, in the application security pillar, we offer things like vulnerability management, code scanning, transport control, threat detection response, so everything about the real security topics. That's also the part where we are stuck to today. So we are working with the application security part today, and their vulnerability management especially. But it's not only vulnerability management. Sometimes it's going hand in hand with threat detection and things like that. But I think we'll see that in the slides later, where are intersections here. Let's go over to the layers of protection. Before I start here, we will focus on our webinar a bit on SAP today, because what we offer in vulnerability management here is more SAP specific. But that not mean that the layers of protection only are valid for SAP. You can say that's a valid scheme you can use in general. It's not only SAP. You can use that anywhere. And first, what you're doing to secure your business application is you start with role-based access control. So you make everything fine about your profiles, roles, permissions, so that your user access and the access strategy and what users can do on the system is safe. Then the next layer you can put on top is ABAC, so attribute-based access control. Then you don't assign a role, you assign attributes like is there an IP address, or is there a time when you expect the user to enter. And when the user enters your system, so logs in out of the business hours, the screen is marked blocked because the attribute user time or usage time is not what you expect in the company. So you set up a security around that. Then the next layer, there we have vulnerability detection. That is everything about detecting misconfiguration within your system. So you must continuously scan your system. Is everything configured as you want to? But also when you have code, as you have it in SAP Online, you can check here, are there vulnerabilities within my code? Are there vulnerabilities within add-ons I use? Are there open OSS nodes I have to install within my system? So that is everything about vulnerability detection or what's inside here. And then the last cover you put over is threat detection. That's real-time threat detection, what I mean here. Then you analyze logs within real time from every application within SAP or every tool within SAP. You analyze the logs and you scan, is there something critical ongoing? So is there a parameter change? You can detect it live and not only when you scan it once a month. You can see when it happens and you can call the person who changed the parameter, ask why. Might there's a reason. You can commit that and you can accept the risk for that special occurrence, but you're aware about that in real time and not only in cyclical steps. Yeah, and today we are talking about vulnerability management within the vulnerability detection area, and that's where I hand over to Clemens.
Thank you, Raphael, for this brief introduction into the bigger picture of cybersecurity and Pathlock. And what's my goal today is to give you an insight, what is vulnerability management first. And I want to go some steps back and don't focus on vulnerability management on SAP, on IT at all. I just want to explain it really practical. For example, you have an office building and it's really important that you secure all relevant access points. Otherwise, someone can just go through a window, go through the front door, whatever. If there are no secured access points at all, surely it's really a threat or a potential threat. And so what you are doing, you put a lock on your door, you close the windows, you have whatever measurements, a garage door, maybe also a security guard at the entries, whatever you can make to be sure that everything is secured. But if someone leaves a window open, for example, you might not detect it. So what you are doing for vulnerability management, first, you have an state you want to achieve, your target state, for example, all closed windows and so on. And the second thing is that your cyclical have, for example, a security guard going around and checking everything. And he makes, now back to IT, a snapshot of the current state. And always compare it to the target state you want to achieve. And if everything is fine, doors are closed, windows are closed, and so on, everything is fine. Otherwise, you have to work on these things. And how does it look for SAP and for Pathlock vulnerability management now? This example. I just brought here a schema how we define vulnerability management in our context and how it's done practically. The first thing is we define an audit requirement. It can be based on internal requirements, SOX for sure, GDPR if necessary, or some special things in defense, for example, whatever other legal requirements are needed. And based on these audit requirements, we create a target state. It's around permissions, network, database, ABAP coding, and so on, in a wide field of checks and areas. And what we do then is we make a first scan on one system, on one landscape, on the whole business landscape. We can do it at once with one scan, we can do it with multiple scans. However, it's sufficient for you, but then you have the initial state. And you might have everything green, but most likely you will have some findings. Some areas are critical, some areas are less critical, and you are able to have a first initial state. And then the hardening project starts. Within this hardening project, you try to minimize the risk based on the priorities, based on the criticality of tasks which are given within this audit. And you go on and go on and go on and mitigate maybe some risks, but most of them you just fix. You try to identify and understand the risk and solve it. Then you scan again. You have some in-between stand again and again, and at the end, you reach a last project state where all measurements are in an okay state, in a green state, and everything is fulfilled. Now you have reached the target state, and what we are doing then, or just back to the picture of the office building, now we have the locks on the door, the closed windows, and so on. And to achieve the state and to be continuous on an on the target state, we make cyclical scans based on our audit requirements again. It can be once a month, once a week, depends a little bit on the requirements, and always compare the target state with the real state we have. And so we can identify if something has changed or if we need to update because Pathlock had made updates to their content and we identified there's some new changes. Also for patch management, for example, also part of vulnerability management, we can make something like this. And so we have always the big picture. How can you have now and look onto this information? This is really technical. Not everyone understands this and so on. For this, Pathlock provides a couple of views onto this topic. First of all, Pathlock has the executive dashboard. Within the executive dashboard, you will have content of vulnerability management, but also other areas of cyber security, for example, threat detection. And this combined view on a high level of aggregation with only a few information, not too deep information, but options to drill down. You have the full picture on a very high level to understand, do we have an issue on our business landscape? What is our business impact, or is everything fine? But also you have some information about trends. How long are vulnerabilities open? How many days, for example, and so on. The second view, the audit dashboard, gives you an feeling, gives you an insight in these audits I discussed before, where you can see the actual state based on this audit requirements you defined, or also you can go back and see an historical state. So you have this picture. It's also really required if you have some external audits, for example, and you can go back to one execution at one date based on this audit requirements. And the next thing is the vulnerability monitoring. This is more or less a list of all checked test cases. You will have the test cases which are passed, which are compliant. You will have test cases which are not compliant. And you can also drill down into the vulnerability details where you have the business impact description, you have the technical solution and so on, and the risk which is behind, and more analysis topics. And so you can have the full picture with drill downs, which is always important. But who needs what for his job? Normally, I would now show you something around how this is everything done. But we thought today we never had made a webinar about which user groups need what for their work. And we want to show you or give you a little insight into the topic, and that we are focusing on these user groups with our solution here. And the first user is the executive, or user group, the executives. What is important? What does they need? They need a high-level overview. Sure, you don't need very detailed information about your development landscape. It's not important. You need to know, do I have a potential risk? Do I have a business impact? What risk prioritization I have? Do I have critical CVSS, for example? Is something exploitable within my landscape? This information I need. Trends. In which direction is my business landscape going? The business impacts, and it must be easy to understand. Even if you're not an expert on SAP, if you're an expert on IT, you need to understand, do I have an issue or is everything fine? For this, the executive dashboard is built. But if you have a discussion, for example, as a CIO, with some more technical teams, with security teams, then you have the option to drill down into the audits. For example, if you want to know, is the SOX audit compliant, and so on. And you can drill down into the whole application up to the information. What is this test case really meaning? The next person or the next team, we are integrated in the whole story here is the SAP security team. What are their needs? First, they need a detailed vulnerability information. They need the risk prioritization and scoring. It's important to have historical data and trends. You must have options to follow some compliance and regulatory insights, for example, GDPR, SOX, whatever. And maybe there's a need of integration with other security solutions for the big picture, to have not only information from SAP, there are multiple reasons. For this, you can start with the executive dashboard if you want, but the main dashboards, the main application parts required are the audit dashboard on the one side, especially for all the regulations and things, but on the other side, the vulnerability monitor and the vulnerability details to get a full picture of what does this problem mean. The next persona we took care of are the subsystem owners. What is a typical subsystem owner? Someone who is responsible for a landscape, for multiple landscapes, for an S4 landscape, for example, based on dev, QA, and prod system. And he only needs to know what issues do I have on the system, or the systems. And so it's important to have a more system-specific information. Again, you need some risk prioritization. You need to know what is really an issue and a high-rated issue and critical issue, or what is just low-hanging fruit. No, not low-hanging fruit, just a low prioritized problem. You need a progress tracking. How long are my critical issues open, for example? Patch management becomes more important. Again, you also need historical data and you need documentations. For this, again, it's more the focus on the vulnerability monitoring and the vulnerability details, but you also need or can get information from the executive dashboard and the audit dashboard. For example, if you are only focusing this on your needs, you can just filtering the whole content only to one system, to a couple of systems, and so you have a focused view on the whole topic. Last but not least, the last persona we covered is the SAP Basis team. And the Basis team's main focus is to solve some of these issues, to solve the problems, and they are most likely responsible for, at least in larger companies, for a couple of systems and not for everything. So it's important that you again have a system-centric view. You need the risk prioritization again. You need details to understand what is the point behind and the solutions. You need access to the patch management and documentations to this issue. For this, your main work will be with the vulnerability monitor and the vulnerability details to have a full picture of the problems for your systems you are responsible at. But for example, the Basis team does not need really access to the executive dashboard. So now I introduced you a little bit into the personas, and I want to give you in the next step a short live demo into this topic and focus on especially the executive on the first hand and the SAP security team on the second way. I need to add a short disclaimer here. It's more or less early access we show you. The executive dashboard is released, but the vulnerability dashboard we are currently completely revamping based on the persona information and so on. And it will be released end of the year, but it's not yet 100% done everything. So for you to know, but I think it's already nice to see that we focus on the needs of the different user groups. But let me jump into the system. First of all, again, there are just tiles in your for your Launchpad. We created an application which is not 100% integrated in the Fiori Launchpad, but it's working standalone. So we have a couple of advantages. We can freely build things. And here we see now the security overview of the executive security dashboard. For example, on the top left, the first information which is really important, you will have an information about your business impact. In this case, we have mission critical vulnerabilities. We really need to fix here things. It's involved one production system and 4 assets at all. Overall, our inventory is based on the systems. We have several compliance regulations followed here. Just for you to know, it's the dev system, because I want to show you in the next step the vulnerability dashboard as a drill down for the security team. And here is just maintained what the developers think. We have information about which assets are exposed, which have, for example, critical CVSS. It's always divided into production or total systems, our information, and you find it on multiple stages here. We divided everything so you have on one view the production systems and everything else is then on the next step. You can see trends how long are issues open. And I want to focus especially on the vulnerability assessment area on the bottom left. Here, for example, we have 28 critical issues on production systems, 328 at all. And if we want to, for example, the security team wants to have an insight, what are the basis, what is the reason of this of this critical issues, we can drill into and get the results of the 5 audits. Now we are in the audit monitor. The audit monitor is just an overview about all regular executed audits. And I want to focus now on this one. For example, it's 147 times executed already. It's on daily base. It follows SOX regulations. 2 assets are part of it. 3,176 checks are executed always. And here you have also an indication about the findings already and issues and the assets. If I drill now in and make it to full screen to have a better look, we provide you as a security team, as a security responsible, first one-pager with the most important information. What kind of assets are part of it? What is in short trend about the issues? What issues are part of the whole scanning and so on? You can have a small trend. It will be reworked a little bit more to get a better overview in the first stage. And you have the top issues. And I want to just go in from the top issues and drill now in to get a better overview about what is part of this audit. What did we find? Before I go here more into detail, I want to show you the whole page here. The vulnerability monitor is now these 6,352 checks, because it was, oh, I forgot the numbers, 3,100 and a little bit more checks executed on 2 systems. So we overall have this 6,300, and you have the result and the criticality for all these checks here. On the first, you can also personalize if you don't want to see the findings, for example, because you don't need it. You can make your personalization here also. But now on the first state, you have all the information here. And let me just jump into one of this. This NetWeaver 3, for example, this checks if some SIGF services are deactivated. If I now throw in one check execution, I will have a business impact. It's a problem description and a technical solution, always a little bit shortened, at least if there is no more than this information. You have an overview about the findings. It's also included the last one, the last execution, if there's some changed. In how many assets this is an issue, and in how many audits this is checked, and since how many days it's open. If I want to have more insight into the findings, I can go to the findings and have an overview about what are, for example, the C19 findings. Again, in short description, but let me directly go in. We have a real-world scenario always. The issue is described. We have a business impact. What is the problem if you have this as an issue? What steps for remediation and what are the technical solution steps, for example, for this test service that they are open? You should go to your SAP system, call this transaction, navigate to the ICF tree entries, and deactivate the service. And last but not least, for this analysis part, you can jump into the analysis, where you have a calendar first, where you can follow the status of this check. since it's executed. The system exists since end of February, so it's the way we see it here. And for example, it's not okay since 15 days, this problem. And here we had some open executions, and open means it was not checked somehow. And if an automatic check, for example, is open, this means execution failed somehow. You need to check. But you can have also a finding history. Okay, in the system, not much happens. You have a trend, how many assets are checked for this check. And you can see which audits. You also saw this already on the starting page. It was 2 audits and 4 systems. Why 4 and not 5? Because the SDE is in 2 audits checked. And here you have the overview about what is checked. And if I want to jump into, I can also jump into another system. Now NASA is the execution. It's now this SDT system. And here we have the same structure. We have same findings because it's actually a copy of the system, but it's a little bit older. So we have like 300 days. Yeah, overall that, I wanted to give you a short introduction into what capabilities we have on the vulnerability dashboards. I wanted to give you an insight into the information, or an insight that you can see why we created this dashboards. We always had in mind what different user groups need. And I hope you could get at least a little insight into this. And so I want to come to the key takeaways at this point. First of all, vulnerability management is a key feature at all. Automation enables effective continuous monitoring. Otherwise, we will never find out if something is changed later. And it's always important to have the unique needs of various personas in your mind when you're building these applications. And with this said, I want you to keep your security up to date always. And my presentation is done for today, and I hope you have some questions we can discuss now.
Thank you, Clemens and Raphael. We have a few questions. Our first question is, in the overview slides, you mentioned about SAP ABAP code scanning as part of vulnerability management offering from Pathlock, but SAP provides inbuilt scanning tools like Source Code Inspector and ATC. What is special about your code scanning offering?
This is another big topic, but let me try to give a short answer. Yes, SAP provides the ATC, but the ATC is most likely a feature to take, for example, syntax, to use it for migration to S4 analysis, for performance things, but the security topic is not really well covered at all. Things like dynamical SQL usage, exec, OS commands, etc. And our code scanning solution has 2 parts. The first part is especially for development, or overall our code scanning solution is an enhancement of the ATC. We use the ATC functionality to have the same look and feel, and we know most of the developers know how ATC is working and so on, to have the whole look and feel. But on the other hand, we enhance the ATC with all the security features. And we bring, I'm not 100% sure, I think it's around 90 test cases which are only focused on security. And you can directly integrate it into these audit cycles. And so you have also a continuous monitoring about your code security on your business landscape. I hope this will give at least a short overview about the solution. Otherwise, please feel free to contact us later, and we will can go in a more deeper introduction into this topic.
Okay, and then we just have one more question. Do I need an S/4HANA system to use this application?
Actually, no. What is the minimum requirements for the backend? We focus that it's running on solution managers, means it's an SAP system with a basis 740 SP9 or higher. This is a minimum backend requirement. And for the front end, it's required a newer system. I think the minimum requirements is
752.
Yeah, 752 with an UI5 version of 1.96, but it can be any system. And currently we are working also on a support for BTP Cloud. So you can deploy everything on your BTP Cloud if you have access. And the backend again could be Solution Manager, but if you want, you can also deploy everything on your S4 system. There's no need to have one.
Okay, great. That's all the questions we have for today. Thank you, Clemens and Raphael, for that presentation. We just want to thank everyone for coming. If you want to go to pathlock.com for more information, we have a really exciting report that came out from Kupinger Cole. Pathlock was named a leader in 2 prestigious industry reports. If you want to go ahead and check that out, that's right on our website on pathlock.com, and we encourage you to do that. And with that, we just want to thank you for coming and say we hope to see you at future webinar events.